Welcome to the Crypt Rick and Jonathan show. I'm your host, Crypt Rick, and this is my co-host, Jonathan Wright.
We are going to be bringing you information and inspiration from all the variety under the sun. Things that will encourage mental and spiritual growth and empower you to freedom, fun, and health.
Make sure you don't miss our show every Saturday, Studio B, 6 to 8 p.m. right here at Revolution Radio.
The journey begins.
Welcome, everybody. It is another Saturday. We are here for another amazing show with another amazing guest. You are listening to the Crypt Rick and Jonathan show right here at Revolution Radio. And I'm going to go ahead and bring my co-host in, the amazing Mr. Jonathan Wright. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic, sir. Thank you for asking.
That sounds awesome. You're always doing fantastic. You're always killing it.
I try to bring a good attitude with me wherever I go.
It goes a long way. Attitude is
infectious.
Key.
It's infectious most often.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
Yep.
So yeah, what have you been up to? I know I've been busy. So what have you been up to? I know you've been in your food forest. Have to be.
I have. I've continued working in the food forest on a regular basis. And
nice.
I I'm not going to probably expand too much on it, like as in purchase a whole bunch more expensive stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to refine and nicen, and I am going to continue digging the pond. I was thinking about that all this morning, and I was like, well, because I'm at a point where, as far as plant life, I bought all the trees,
Nice.
and or have them in, and or were gifted them, and so. And then, there's some artichokes I could put in per the plan, and I might still do that. But it would mostly be digging that pond because that's going to take some time. So
that's going to be, it's going to be work. But it's going to be amazing once it's in.
Oh, it's going to be super cool. And it's not going to be fully finished like ever, I don't think, until, people move in and then it gets established for a good year and the lily pads and the watercress and all that stuff can actually really go. Mm-hmm. And then it'll be, plus all the wildflowers that are at least planned to grow around it. That'll be something that I won't be able to get to this year for sure. So hopefully whoever purchases this place and gets it will really see it for what it is and just expand on it,
I hope they do, because you've placed the groundwork, right? You've got it all mapped out. So
much is in place too. I mean, literally, if they just backed off and let it go, it would be 3/4 of a food forest,
Very cool.
So yeah, there's not a whole lot left they would have to do. There will be some work that they'll have to do. So, and I think that anybody that purchases this place would realize that there's a little work, but man, the planning and the initial like you said, the foundation and the groundwork, that's all done. The soil has been amended, the beds have been built, the beds have been prepared for literally 2 years down the road.
So it's just them planting the stuff and
add mulch, and then and most of the stuff that there is to plant is smaller things. There are the guilds around each tree, but the trees haven't built up yet, and made any kind of, so it almost is beneficial to let those trees get settled in for a year or two and then start building all the stuff around it. So it would be a perfect a starter. They're buying a starter kit that's already been kind of given that kick in the butt to get going, and they can come in and finish it. So, and I figure somebody, because people out here love that. There's a lot of people that love gardening and they love this. They've never heard of permaculture, or they don't know understand that you could use and do this with what your yard is and go, wow, and it still be beautiful. But it's just really functional.
That's the key.
I think this will be a selling point, honestly, of the house. Somebody will actually realize what it is, look at it. It'll have an impact on someone, and they'll go, that's what we're buying, man. This dude's already built this place like this. Plus, if you've ever been here and stood in my backyard or my front yard, my grandparents picked such a fantastic place on this golf course too. We're at the end of a cul-de-sac where there's only a few houses and nobody comes down and really, so there's no traffic. And at almost any time of the day, you hear birds and hear squirrels rummaging through stuff. That's what you hear. Even though there's a street not too far, there's big trees built up and whatnot, so it's relatively quiet. It's just peaceful. Even if there's golfers, we're up on a hill kind of, and the way that everything's set up is it's just, it'll
be
very
amazing.
private, very private.
Once it all grows in, it's going to be amazing. And that's with me with this food forest. Like I was just adding more bushes, like berry bushes this week. And I know I got too much sun again. I'm going to pay for this because I've been out cooking myself and like literally.
Yeah.
And so I'm feeling it. But I mean, I go through this every spring, but definitely it's a whole different, this permaculture is a whole different way of thinking. I'm used to doing it where you just plant your things in the summer, you harvest in the fall, and then you're done and you rinse and repeat, do it every year. And now that you've got me thinking and Jim Gale's got me thinking in a totally different way of thinking, it's fun. Like, and now I'm really planning when I before I just threw things in the ground, and if it worked, it worked. And now I'm really planning. So I was sending you pictures of my berry bushes and that, and I got a lot of them this week. So I'm on my way.
you definitely sent me a couple of pictures, and I just bought a book. And for the podcast, I'll show it. It's introduction. Oops, let me see right there. Introduction to Permaculture, by Bill Mollison. And there's a definition in here. And I don't think I have it right in front of me. So I'll dig for it as we go, and then
you'll find
at some point I'll break it out and go over it. But ultimately it's not really about it's permanent culture. And so it's really it's about working with the land. It's about helping people, helping the earth, and then with whatever abundance comes back from that, you put it back into A and B.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's just a self-perpetuating system of good. It's not necessarily geared towards growing food. I mean, that's what it kind of seems like, because we talk about a permaculture food forest, because when you apply those concepts to food, this is what comes out of it. But the concept can be applied to and is applied to the entirety of a homestead.
Exactly.
So financial, the business, how you get along and what you do with your neighbors, and but then also incorporated into the land. Where does your house go? How do you build your swales? How does the water naturally go? And where should you build your pond, and et cetera, all of it. It's just such an encompassing. So really, when you study permaculture, you're learning and kind of taking on more of a bit of a lifestyle change, and I
totally agree. Yep.
It's a philosophy as well.
Yep.
And I'm just now getting started, and I'm on 8 pages into the introduction, and I'm like, oh, I get it. So it's totally not what I thought it was. And it's a little bit it is, but so anyway, just thought I'd share that's just kind of part of what we're doing. And speaking of, the greens part of it, and the growing things, this our guest that I have invited,
excited. Yes.
I don't know her very well. I spoke with her for about 10 minutes this morning, and that was just so that we could at least have said hello for a second before we jumped on air. And so, Rick, you're again going in fully cold. But
no, I was checking it out a little.
To ask questions and get to know her. She's very cool. And so I'll let her tell you most of the stuff. I will just give everybody a little bit of a heads up. She's got a French accent, so she's French, and she is living in Taiwan, and she speaks 4 or 5 languages. It's crazy. I'm like, wow. Yeah, I know some words in Spanish.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking I'm not going to bring it up. I know a few words.
Right, exactly. And she's like, yeah, I know 5 languages. And so I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. So anyway, she's got a cool story. Interesting to hear about living in Taiwan. But her name is Dorian Greens, and she's also on the One Great Work Network. And I would like to just introduce her, say hello, and thank you for joining our show.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And yes, so I live in Taiwan, and what brought me here was my studies and studying language and literature. It was what you would call China studies. So I had a choice to come to China or to Taiwan, and for my exchange program, I came to Taiwan.
Yes. So real quick, what's the difference? I mean, I know. Just for some people, because not really understanding, because isn't Taiwan in China? Isn't it part of China?
So it's officially part of China, but Taiwan works independently. I would say they have their own money, their own system, but they're not recognized as a country, unfortunately, by the world, you know. So
right.
there's
So is it
always
like a
some
territory or
conflict.
something? How are they recognized then?
So it's Taiwan. It's an island between at the east coast of China, south of Korea and Japan, and north of the Philippines. And it's like an island that belongs to China, but that has their own democracy and
Own government.
own government. Yes.
Ah, okay.
So yeah, they have their own
Interesting.
government.
Okay, see, I thought there was like ambassadorship of China or something. I wasn't sure how it worked. I never really
But
took the time to get into it, but I did know that it was a separate thing and that
yeah.
they use it a lot for, China's going to invade Taiwan and then we're going to have to nuke them.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then because it's not officially recognized by other countries, I mean, some countries recognize it, so they have relationships with Taiwan, and those sometimes recognize it and then stop recognizing it, so then they leave Taiwan. Taiwan doesn't have embassies, but it has official offices for each country who recognize it. So yeah, it works with its own government. But then on a larger scale, for bigger decisions, it's China.
Oh, okay. They still come in and boss their way around when they feel it's
Right.
necessary.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then if you look at the history of Taiwan, Chinese people came a few years ago, or I mean, long time ago, first in the first hand after the Portuguese and the Dutch, and then there were Japanese, then Chinese people, and then Japanese came, and then Chinese people again in larger amount of people after or during the Cultural Revolution.
Sweet.
That's
So
So
it's a
it's,
nice
fascinating.
mixing pot there then, huh?
yes, first you have Aboriginal people who live in Taiwan for like 6,000 years, and they are Austronesian people, and they actually not the majority of people living in Taiwan anymore. Now it's actually Chinese people. I mean, Han descent people. So Chinese, yes, Chinese people who have Chinese ancestors, and they are like 95% of the population.
Wow.
So the official language is Mandarin Chinese, and most of the culture that you will see around is Chinese, but you have Aboriginal people and Aboriginal culture and villages still present.
Nice.
Wow.
Very nice. So, what see, one of the things I was asking her earlier, Rick, was about her job, and because she said, "Well, I can't talk right now. I'm going to work," and I was like, "Oh, okay." And I remember I looked into your website, and just real quick for everybody, what is your website?
It's doriangreens.com.
Okay, and that's DORIANE
Yes.
GREENS.
Yes,
Is that right?
exactly.
.com. Okay, cool. And I looked at that. I went there the other day, and what a cool website that is. It's set up very nice, and it
Thank you.
shows all the different stuff you do, which I was just like, oh, this is just a no-brainer. We definitely have her on. And I mean, I was gonna have you on anyway, but it was just like after I saw your website, I was like, wow, you do a lot more than what I had anticipated, and so it's very cool. And so yeah, I just anyway, I was asking you about your job because I thought, oh man, I hope she's not doing something like just regular. It was just a thought I had in my head, like, because I know you're a dancer and you make like soaps and candles and whatnot, and you put your different plants that you've grown and whatnot, and use that as part of your whole process. And I just think that's cool. So I was hoping that that's what you were doing, and it turns out you were. So I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, actually, so I'm a professional dancer, and I also love making things with plants, or like you said, soaps, candles, and different things handmade. So I started to combine everything that I enjoy making or doing, and trying to make it my main source of living, and so I can just do what I love. At first, I was teaching French actually after my studies, and I enjoyed doing it. But dance is more what I love since I was 4 years old, and making art, also painting, all this, making jewelry, which I was doing more before. And when I did my studies, actually, I tried to find something that will connect what I like to do. So I studied an Aboriginal tribe of Taiwan, and I studied their costumes and jewelry that they wear during ceremonies.
Nice.
So I was always trying to find a way to go back to what I really like to do. And even if I went on the road of languages and I wanted to study more about art, I tried to always find a way to still incorporate art in what I'm doing. Yeah.
Beautiful. That's awesome. Yeah, you got to follow your heart, you know?
Exactly.
You
That's where
have to.
happiness is.
Mhm.
Yep.
Cool. So, how did you end up finding your way to the One Great Work Network? Like, how did that come about?
So, well, first of all, one day I was, my husband referred like the Unholy Feminine presentation by Mark Passio. So
Right.
this is where I first started to watch his work. And after that, I started to watch more. And eventually one day I thought, okay, I have to spread the word about natural law, or even the little knowledge I have about all of this knowledge that helped me
Absolutely.
and that will help others. And I started to share by making videos, as well as incorporating it in my dance videos that I make, but also other kind of videos where I would just use my voice to just speak up and spread the word. And then somebody contacted me and told me that Mark Passio was interested to have me on the website.
Nice.
And I got in touch with him, and then I joined the website.
Fantastic. That's
That's
very cool. Yeah, what a good message to be spreading, you know what I mean? And what a unique way to be doing it through just art and dance and interpretation.
That's what I was going to say too,
Yeah.
Jonathan, is that like, a lot of people I talk to, they'll say that, they have the knowledge, they want to do the great work, but they're not necessarily inclined to do a podcast or a radio show. That's not what they do. So what I like is that this is showing that you don't have to do it that way. There's other ways, something that you're passionate about, that you enjoy doing. Dance, there's so many, art, there's so many different ways you can get the word out there. And you don't have, you're only limited by your imagination, is what I would say.
Yeah. And another thing too, Rick, you and Jen make jewelry. Is that not
Yep.
right? You guys
Yep.
are doing that. Yeah. So I just thought that's cool and very artistically minded Rick's family is.
For sure.
So that's another reason that I wanted you guys to get on, because I just know the whole vibe of living off of your art and being able to, have that faith and that courage to take that step. Because, again, I did that when I graduated college, and my buddy was like, come check out my glass shop, because for my graduation present, my mom gave me her old car. So I was like, sweet, I got a set of wheels now. And then I drove down to check out my buddy's house. Yeah, when I graduated college, I had no car. That's where you know what I mean? I was perfect for glass blowing. And so I go down and I check out my buddy's glass shop, and I come, and he's like, he shows me his case of pipes. I watch him make a pipe, and then he shows me, he's like, I did that in a week. And what the work that he had there, and it was like a handgun case, a padded handgun case with 2 layers, probably had 40 pipes in it. He's like, I made that in a week. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, that's going to be like $1,500. And I was like, oh, well then, wow. And he's like, and I'm looking at his shop, and it's a little torch and oxygen and propane going into it and a fan, and then the niceties, whatever. And so, but that was the basics. And I'm like, damn, dude, and a little kiln to put the hot glass in when you're done. I'm like, okay. So he's like, you can build it for this. I got people that'll help me. And I was growing cannabis at the time, so I was able to like trade out of that for a lot of work and for a lot of other things. So I got a really nice professional shop, and I was like, made the phone call and was just like, so now that I've graduated college with microbiology, I'm going to be a glass blower and make pipes and sell them to head shops.
That's great.
And my mom and dad were behind me. They were like, well, My mom even, she was like, as long as you make money, I really don't care. But that's because both my mom and dad were in a band. They met in a band, and both of their parents did not support them. And it was just, so I lucked out on that gig, man. My dad and my mom both were behind me to be a glassblower. And so both my grandparents were like, you're excommunicated.
Yeah, but
And
you
then,
do amazing work, Jonathan. Like you sent me, I can't. It's amazing. You sent me one of the pipes that you made, and then a pendant that you made for my wife, and they are. And I'm not just saying this, Jonathan, because we're friends and you're my co-host. I truly mean this. They are beautiful. Like I couldn't believe the pipe, and when I saw it, and I was showing everybody, and I don't even want to smoke out of it.
No, like, dude, you need to, because it'll give it that black background, and then all that color will come out.
That's
it's
true.
A purely color changing pipe, that one that I gave you. So it's gonna
amazing work.
Make sure you fill that. Don't scrape it. Let it fill completely in, and it'll change. And then go hold it in the sun, and you'll see what I'm talking about, dude. It'll be a rainbow of colors come out of that thing.
Yeah, like you do incredible work. Like the
well,
pendant,
thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, my point was though is that I just, and I didn't know how to blow glass, and I didn't know really how much of an artist I was. It certainly wasn't. I wasn't drawn to this because I was like, ooh, I can finally express myself appropriately. No, it was like, wow, I can make a lot of money doing something artistic, which I know I can do that. I mean, might not be the greatest, but yeah, I can do that. And then so I did. And so to me, it was about freedom. Like that was literally my first taste of real freedom, like separating myself from what I'm supposed to do. And like in a big way, like, yikes, I'm supposed to go get a job now with microbiology, and like, nope, not doing it. And in fact, I'm picking something that allows me and leaves me a lot at festivals with hippies, walking around with a lot of drugs and piles of cash. And that's just where I was at. And that's what happened. And I made a pretty good living. I could have made a much better living had I been more focused on money, which I just never really have been. So, but I drew myself to what I needed. But that's why I like your story too, though, Dorian, because it's the same kind of gig. And Rick, you too, tattooing, and Jen's doing her art, and you guys are just, you gotta at least express your art and not hide it and be like, oh, that's a hobby that I just do once in a while. It's like, even if your job takes a lot of your time, you should be promoting your art as like something that when it takes off, you can then quit that job you hate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can make it a priority in your life. Of course, sometimes you have to start with another job, but then it will come back to you,
Absolutely.
So then it's a choice you make. Okay, I go this road and I focus on my art, or I just keep working in that job. And you can, of course, start to do your art or go back to your art more frequently, more regularly while you're doing your job. And eventually, like you said, then one day it can become like the scale can just goes more into your art, and then you can quit your job.
And then your freedom, but your happiness, and your happiness comes from your freedom, and you don't realize that until you, oh my God. And then you realize if you have to actually go work for someone again, we talked about that a little bit this morning. It's like, man, when you have to then go, oh no, I have to for some reason go back and do this for a little bit. It's like so hard. It's like, whoa, I don't want to do this at all now. I've tasted what its freedom is like, and now I have to clock in for somebody, and they're gonna take money out of my paycheck for taxes anyway. It's like, wow, this sucks. So.
Yes, especially when you leave a job that you had and you go into your art and then go back to another job or work somebody else, you feel it more than the first time, and you don't have that patience like the first time.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Wow.
And Rick, you've made your job with tattooing. When was the last time you did some tattoos? I haven't really heard you say much about it lately.
I'm just starting up again. I took the winter off because winters are a little rough on me. Okay. So I was focusing a lot on doing my interviews and radio and stuff like that. But I'm definitely got a calling to do it again. As soon as the weather seemed to get better, I was like, oh my God, I have a lot of people that want to get some work done on them. So I got the shop cleaned up, and I'll start very soon, probably this weekend.
Cool. You said you were doing some like a cleanup on somebody. It was a while ago now, though. I don't remember how long ago that was.
Right.
But yeah, I hadn't heard you mention it since then, so I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you have to take a hiatus, dude. I got my glass shop set up, and I still need to make that flat Earth for Pack.
Oh, right.
But dude, I am so like that. I have to make time for that. Seriously. Like on top of finding time to read my books and stuff like that, it's crazy, man. Like I'm so jammed with time. It's unbelievable. And it's okay. It keeps me busy. But
there's only so many hours in a day. That's the problem.
And some of it has to be allowed for fun, and like I'm not gonna just make myself be completely like, well, blah 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 blah. It's like, no, I'm gonna enjoy some of it for sure. Like where it's like which a lot of it's being in my yard, so I can enjoy that for sure on that level,
Fascinating. Yeah. Well, you could learn 5 languages like our guest.
Yeah. I was gonna get to that.
I want to ask about that because I can barely do English. Never mind.
Yeah. That was the thing. I was asking her this morning. I said, "So where do you live?" She goes, "Taiwan," and I just immediately was like, "Well, I mean, clearly that means you speak Chinese." I mean, I didn't really just assume that initially in my mind. Of course, I did. Right. And then nope, sure enough, she speaks Chinese, and I'm like, "Wow." And your English is really good, and so that means French, English, and Chinese for sure. And those aren't easy ones, any of them. So yeah, and then clearly she was like, "Well, I speak some Spanish and Portuguese and whatever else." So tell us about that too. Like, how did that come about? Like that you are so good at language.
Yeah, like a love of language.
Yeah, another love of language, huh?
So I'm in my last elementary school year. We had an English teacher who came to our school, and at that time in France, it was not usual to start to learn English in elementary school, but I loved this class and I loved this teacher. I was really waiting for this class impatiently, and I started to love English from that class. Then in junior high school, you have English class, but you have a choice actually. Before you even choose to learn English, you can learn German or English in France. And then if you learn English already, you will have to take another language, which will be Spanish or Italian. If you study German first, you will have to choose English. You cannot choose Spanish or Italian. So I started with English. Then in junior high school, I chose Spanish. And in high school, actually, I wanted to go to a high school that had an art class. And my father wanted me to go to another high school, which I was not happy about. And I had to learn a third language, which was Italian, because I already took Spanish. So it was whether I chose Italian or I could choose Latin. But at that time, I didn't like Latin classes so much.
Wow.
So, I liked it in the first year because we studied the mythology and we even had a trip to Greece with my school. But then when it started to be, like Rosae, like the kind of more grammar, it was not so much about the stories. I didn't like it. Right. I was like, no, I'm not choosing Latin in high school. I'm taking Italian.
A dead language that's good for old medical terminology? Like, what? Really? Like, no, dude. No, I don't want to learn Latin.
Yeah, my mom wanted me to learn it because when she went to study, so she's from North Africa, but she loved French literature. So she came to France to study French literature, and she didn't learn Latin. So it was a class that was a bit difficult for her. So she told me, no, choose Latin in case you will need it later. You will see, it will help you. I was like, no, it won't help me.
No, I mean, you might sound cool or get some Jeopardy questions or like, you know what I mean? Like really impress people a couple of times here and there. But outside of that, I don't think that Latin's really going to do much for you.
In daily life?
In daily life, right. No, not really.
But then now I quite like it because I get to understand more the root of the words. So now I like it.
Yep. Once you actually realize that it'll teach you the language, then yes, it does do good for that. But there's no speaking of it. You know what I mean? To me, like Russian. Like I would rather have Russian under my belt because then I would like have Russian under my belt.
You can communicate with people.
Because I think with Latin, that's kind of something more that you can like look up on the fly. You know what I'm saying? Where it is nice to have that mindset, but you clearly have that anyway. You have 4 languages, like or what 5 really, and so that's insane. Like
so then, so I was in high school and going more into the languages path. since I didn't have art class anymore. Well, I had dance classes, which is still art, but I wanted to really keep learning the painting and all this manual work with art. So then it was about languages, and I joined a martial art class when I was in high school, so outside of my high school. And this is the time where I actually stopped my dance school to go to martial arts. Well, that's another story, but
What
basically
kind
my
of martial
father,
arts?
Chinese Kung Fu.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Okay.
And where was this? Where was this at geographically that you were taking this class?
in south of France.
Okay, South France.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm from south of France.
Okay.
So near Marseille, if you've heard about it.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so at that time, I was always in a dance school since I was 4 years old. So
Oh.
outside of school, I would have the dance classes. And it was really next to my building, so I would have to just pick my bag and walk. So it was very convenient.
Nice.
Even as a kid, you know, it's like, okay, I can just go to my dance classes. And then one day in high school, I said, I want to learn Kung Fu. And my father said, you know, it's one thing, dance or Kung Fu, you cannot learn both at the same time. I was like, okay, of course. So I chose Kung Fu. And he was like, are you sure? Yeah. For the first time in my life, at 16 years old, I stopped taking classes in my dance school to do martial arts. And the teacher I had in this martial art class made me want to go study Chinese language and literature, history at university. So it was a time where your teacher started to ask you, what do you want to study after high school? You need to start thinking about it. You need to start to write your plan, etc. And I was like, oh, I've heard my teacher, my Kung Fu teacher, talk about Chinese studies in Aix-en-Provence. And I was like, I will do that. So that's how I started to learn about Chinese language, about Chinese culture, and literature, history, and I added another language, you know, to my
Wow. And
my
so,
repertoire.
did you learn the language in France and then come to Taiwan, or did you go and immerse yourself in it and then learn?
I started to learn it in France.
Really?
So I wanted to go straight, but I had a scholarship to study, so financially I couldn't take a flight ticket and just fly. Like some of my friends went to some schools here where they came here independently, and they had the funds to just do that, to just travel and pay for school, pay for a flight ticket, pay for a place to live. And for me, I couldn't do that. So I went to see my university. Well, there's like some social worker in the university, and I went to ask her, are there any financial help for students to go travel and study abroad? And she said, oh, you have to ask your teachers, actually, because I cannot do anything for you about this. So I asked my teacher, I said, I want to go now. And it was my first year. And they're like, oh, you have to wait for your third year if you want to go to do an exchange program. So exchange programs are done during your third year, because a bachelor in France is 3 years. And so I waited, and they check your grades from your second year, and then they select students. And with my university, we had two choices: to go to a city called Xi'an in China. So if you know about those little soldiers in clay, you know, there's a historical place with the soldiers made of clay. But anyway, it's just a historical place.
Oh, okay. I'll have to look into that.
China.
I don't know
Yeah.
about the soldiers in
Xi'an,
clay, but I'm sure
it's
that's
called.
yeah.
It's interesting. It's called. It's spelled Xian. Xi'an. And the other choice was to go to the south of Taiwan. So we had only two choices with my university, and I was still taking Kung Fu classes. And one student just came back from Taipei and just said, you should go. She gave me all the application forms, and that's the time where I checked. I really wanted to go, and they told me you have to wait because she just went by herself. But as a student on scholarship, and I had to wait for my third year. So then I decided to go to Taiwan for my friends' feedbacks, and I also met some Taiwanese students in France who were studying, and all this made me want to go to Taiwan.
Yeah, wow. And I guess by the time you're already in your third year of it and you are as clearly adept at languages as you are, it's not really hard to get there and start like just speaking to people, you know?
And what's funny is because Taiwanese has an accent, and my teachers in France were more with a mainland Chinese accent. And I even had a Chinese teacher from Beijing, Beijing. And my other teachers were French, but also with a Chinese Mandarin standard accent from mainland China. So they didn't have the Taiwanese accent. So when I came here at first, they couldn't understand me. I couldn't understand them for a few days.
Oh. Literally, it's that bad? It's that bad? Like you can't understand? It makes it different?
Yeah, at first I was confused, but not for a long time. Just a few days until I caught the accent. Where is it that I'm pronouncing in a way that they don't really understand? And it's fast. It's faster than at school, of course. And and then you're suddenly immersed in a daily environment with Chinese characters everywhere, people speaking faster. And the thing is that in the south of Taiwan, people speak more of the Taiwanese dialect, the Taiwanese language. So it's also called Hokkien. And so that's not Mandarin. So this language, I don't know how to speak it. I don't understand it. So if they were speaking in Taiwanese, I would be very confused. But then I got it. I was like, oh, then I could make the difference. And after a few days and a few weeks, and you start your Chinese lessons, you have daily classes when you're an exchange student here. So every morning we had Chinese classes, and then it's faster to just catch with the daily language. Then you understand also the words they're using, because some words with mainland China would be a bit different when you order food, or just some vocabulary is not a big difference. They still understand each other. It's still Mandarin, but it's just what they're used. Like even in the south and the north of Taiwan, like to take away food or something, in the south you will use two words that are different in the north, but both can be understood. It's just that they are used to use those. So if you are focused on what you've learned in your book and you start to say that word and they don't use that, they will be a bit surprised that you say this, so they will be confused, and you will be confused too for a moment. So that's just
but at least it gets it all taken care of. Man, that's crazy. And then there's multiple languages going on too, so that would just be chaos to me. Like, so are there people that you can speak French to?
Yes, yeah.
You got like a little French community too there?
Yes, there are many French people living here, and so I have some friends from France. My husband speaks French too.
Oh yeah. Okay,
He's
cool.
more the language guy than me, actually.
Really?
He speaks so many languages and very
really?
well.
Wow. Yeah. Well, birds of a feather, right? Whatever. Man, that's crazy. Just something about your brain and how it works, because like it doesn't work for me. Like
that's what I'm thinking too. Yeah, like that's a gift.
Right. Well, it's certainly a and it's clearly there's a chunk of the brain that's for language, and mine's just not lit up that well, I guess.
No.
But I can hear, like my ear, it works. I can mimic real good. So like I could probably do it as far as you say something and then let me say it right back to you. I can do that real good.
Yeah.
Now, learn what all of that means and then be able to write it and then communicate with it on my own. That's a whole different task we're asking about now. So language is hard. I mean, Spanish I got because I did it. I there was just, it's on TV, it's constantly around you, and so I paid a little bit of attention in high school. See, that was my thing too. I didn't pay any attention. Like, I know you were into it. You were one of those kids in all classes too, probably, that was just like, ooh, look, I got 100% on this one again. It's like,
well, we had to take French, and we had to take French in my school, and I remember very little I just didn't take it that serious. I wish I would. I
No, I
would
took
have.
French for a semester and bailed on it because it was
Yeah.
hard, and I was like, It was
You know.
specifically hard, and I was like, I can't do all
Yeah,
the.
it's tough. And then Mandarin I've heard, because I worked for a couple that their business, and they were Mandarin. That's what they spoke, and I've heard that that is one of the hardest languages in the world to speak. Is that true?
For sure.
Oh wow. It's well, you have like 4 tones, which is less than Vietnamese
Okay.
language.
Wow.
And then I will say that the writing, for me, I love drawing and painting. So that's what really attracted me in the language and the calligraphy. So if you're not really into writing, drawing, the Chinese character would be a bit painful to learn.
I can imagine. Yeah.
There's no
You can't-
ABC.
Can you just write the?
No, it doesn't really work like this. Yeah, it's more like
Jonathan's like,
what I find very easy in Chinese language, in learning Chinese or Mandarin, is that you don't like the verbs. They stay. There's just one verb. There's no past, future.
There's no conjugating verbs.
No,
then.
there's no conjugating verbs. Yeah.
Interesting.
So you will add yesterday I eat, or tomorrow I eat. You see the verb will be
And
the
that's
same.
how they speak when they speak English. When they that's how truly that's how a lot of Chinese people speak English. Now, granted, there's a lot of Chinese people that learn it very well and they speak it perfectly, but like the general English with the Chinese accent, if you will, is almost saying it like that. They say that's how they speak, so that makes sense why they would do it that way, because it's just like, well, that's just like how our language is.
Exactly. It makes sense when you do that, because you will always go back to your language. Even if you don't want to, but that's the automatic thing that your brain will do, is to speak like your language until you really start to master the other language. But so you will, like, I'm not surprised if they say I eat, or yesterday I eat, because that's how it works. So that's the thing, the part I find easy. And I've never studied German, but I've heard that it's very difficult in that sense, where the conjugating verbs, like French also, that's the hard things, even for us to remember all the verbs. And so Mandarin
that's one of the reasons I failed on it when I was taking it in high school. I was like, no way, dude. And everybody was like, well, because we were picking, and everybody was taking Spanish, and I was like, but they were only taking it because it was easy. And I was like, I like the idea of French. And then I did for a couple weeks, and I was like, nope, I'm dropping this immediately and taking Spanish.
Yeah, my mom's German, and so she was trying to teach me German when I was growing up, and it's a tough one. That's a tough language. At least it was for me. And it's a lot of the like throat growling and stuff is what I call it. Like it's an aggressive language. I don't know if that's it's definitely probably not proper terminology, but it's just a very, very, I always call it aggressive. It's just a very harsh language, like to speak it. And my mom was trying to teach it to me, and it was difficult. So German is up there, I think.
Yeah, I've heard that it's quite difficult.
Yeah, it's just a fascinating about the languages that you know. And I've always found language fascinating, because I'll speak to people that know many different languages, and they'll be talking, and then they'll even say, like, people that are like bilingual or whatever, they'll be explaining something, and I find it fascinating because they'll say, oh, I'm trying to find a word for this because in my language there's no word for what I'm trying to say. They're like, oh, and then they try to find something that's similar. And I just find that really, the whole different languages fascinating, that there's some words that don't even exist in other languages, and other ones have several words that mean the same thing. It gets very confusing.
And that's where English usually comes in. There's a couple of times where English is the one left out, but rarely. Usually it's English comes to the rescue and is like, well, we wouldn't have a word for that otherwise. You know what I mean? And it's like, really? This is some pretty common stuff, and you don't have a word for this in your language? Like, no, we just call it whatever. What do they say? Taco, or that's not the right thing, but like this real simple stuff where it's like, I can't think of an example right now, but I was in Mexico and we found a thing like that, and I was talking to some dudes, and I was like, really? Okay. Where you just think that you would for sure have a word for that, and you find that a lot. But then there's other languages where, like in Italian is one where it's like, 3 different ways to say this thing, and they all have very special meanings when you say it this way or this way or this way.
Yeah, or the same word can have several meanings.
Mm.
It's fascinating. Like, language to me is fascinating.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. And well, when you look at Taiwan, so first actually people call it Ilha Formosa, the Portuguese, and Formosa means beautiful. Ilha, I don't know if it's pronounced Ilha or Ilha, I don't know Portuguese, but it means island. So the beautiful island. And so you had a little bit of Portuguese influence. Then the Dutch people with the Netherlands influence, and then Chinese people from. Actually, they made their first kingdom. It was a Dongning kingdom. So all this was in the 17th century. So this is where the first Chinese, the first Chinese, I would say, not influence, presence on the island was found, and then Japanese also. So you have many people in Taiwan who can speak Japanese, and then, like I said earlier, the Chinese people also from the Qing dynasty. I forgot this one, and then during the Cultural Revolution. So of course, Mandarin Chinese became the main language, but you still have a lot of other languages, the Hakka, Hokkien, Aboriginal languages that are based on Austronesian languages, which is different. Mm-hmm. So all these different, but the Aboriginal languages are getting a bit lost, I would say. They're not practiced so much. People, like, it's not something you will hear when you get out. When you go outside, you will hear Mandarin, you will hear Taiwanese, Hokkien, and people in houses will still speak Hakka if they're Hakka people. And some Aboriginal people will still speak their language also in their village or in their family. But many Aboriginal languages are getting lost, unfortunately.
Yeah. And why do you think that is? Why do you think that is? Why is it getting lost?
Well, before, so when the Japanese were here, they were not in good relationships with the Aboriginal people. So Taiwan, if you picture Taiwan so it's an island that is, I would say, a bit long, like from north to south, and in the middle, it's mountains where the Aboriginal people live. So when the Dutch came, they wouldn't really go to the mountains because it was very difficult to access. So they kind of left the Aboriginal people alone. But when the Japanese came, they fought together. They had big fights. It was very bad, actually. And I think from that time, some people were also, forbidden to speak their language, or there was some people were forced to speak Japanese, and so yeah, it was not really. Yes, exactly. So this affected.
When was this?
Sure.
What year was this in, roughly?
The Japanese 18th. Sorry, 19th.
So 1800s.
20. Yeah, I'll have to check again the exact dates for the Japanese. Yeah, I don't remember. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's fine. I'm just curious because it's interesting. I don't really know much about Taiwan at all, and so I figure. And you seem to know, at least off the cuff, quite a bit of stuff. So
absolutely,
no need for specifics.
A little bit, but yeah, in terms of history, I'm not the most.
Yeah, and that's fine. And that's fine, but no, it's interesting. I'm glad that we talk about this because this is it's a different thing for our show for sure to go into such detail about something, but it's very cool because something that
I love it, yeah.
I mean, they throw the word Taiwan around and they expect us to know about this stuff, and I guess if I looked into it more, I would, but here's me looking into it, you know what I mean? Like, this is fantastic, and what a better way to actually find out about it than speak to somebody who's currently living there. I mean, damn, that beats any kind of news interview or whatever, and like what we were talking about earlier. You're like, well, yeah, they constantly are saying, China's gonna, invade Taiwan, and it's gonna be so bad, and there's all this craziness. And I was asking you about that. So tell me what you were telling me earlier.
So this is something people are used to here. That some people were born with this kind of news going around since their birth. So people are very used to this. China and Taiwan has this conflict for a long time. So this is not
It's a bit of a
something-
psyop, is kind of what you're saying, though, too. Yeah,
it's always somewhere where we never know what can happen.
sure.
But that's something that's been going around for a long time, and people here live with knowing that threat, but not really getting scared.
Right, like we could have nuclear war at any time since they were made. Since they made nuclear weapons, that's even if they're real. But if we just go off the premise that they're real, then yeah, the minute they were made, we could have all died from a nuclear war at any moment. So I mean, it's kind of that thing, and so that's cool because and then they use that in our media to freak us out, so that
that's the thing. Yeah.
That's our fear button that they can push. Oh, China's going to invade Taiwan, and the minute they do that, we have to go to war.
Yeah, and they keep this kind of news in Western countries, I would say, to keep people in fear. It's still in the news here, but like I said, people are used to it, so it doesn't create that level of fear. I will have people contact me, Dorian, is it okay with China? And I was like, what are you talking about? Oh yeah, but that's normal, It's always like this. They will have back and forth. Sometimes it's more calm, sometimes a little bit more, But it's really to keep people in fear in that state, and of course they can do whatever they want. But you have to remember also Taiwan is produces 70% of the semiconductor
right.
manufacture and microchips. So it has what's the name? Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. It's a company that's actually the biggest in the world about semiconductors. So you have to think also about all these things. And China and Taiwan have very good economic relationships as well. So it's not just them hating each other. Of course, they're playing that also for people to keep that, that focus.
Yeah, it's a card that's played in a very elaborate game. You know what I mean? It's not just, we're going to go blow Taiwan up. It's like, no, there's a lot of reasons for them to say that. It creates a lot of different effects when they say that.
That's why it's so powerful to talk to somebody that's living there. I love when I can talk to somebody that's actually in the location.
Yeah.
I've talked to people in Australia. You hear so much about going on in Australia, and I'm like, let me talk to people that live there.
Yeah.
And then you hear what they say, and you're like, and sometimes it's worse than I hear over here, but a lot of the times it's not. They're like, no, this is just what they're saying in your end of the world, but it's not like that here. I think it's important that we speak to people that are actually there.
It is. It's way closer to getting some truth.
Exactly.
And I mean, clearly Dorian can't give us everything. She's not flying around and checking out the whole area, but where she is and the basic idea we can certainly get. And that's much different than any perspective we're going to get from any television news story or documentary even, or any of that stuff. All those things are painted to specifically produce some sort of effect. Whereas you're just telling us how shit is, which is appropriate. And we're getting close to our music for the end of this first hour.
Oh my God,
it's almost then we're going to go to a 4-minute break. But I did want to say, when we come back, let's talk about some stuff I don't know, spirituality and.
I want to ask about your cosmetics and that. I'm reading your website right now. I've been looking it over.
And get into some kind of other aspects of yourself and some things like that. If that's cool. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that'll be fun.
And I did put her link to guys in the chat. So if you want to go and check out her website, the link is in the chat. So please go check it out.
DorianGreens.com.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very cool website too. That's very cool. Did you build that?
No.
No? Okay. Because I was going to say, man, you really did you take Mark's class?
Yes. Yeah.
The
Actually,
class?
I really want to work on the website to make it more independent, and I would love to build something. I'm just trying to figure out a few things. And it takes time, but unfortunately, I didn't build this website.
I was going to say, man,
at least
if you did, that was very good.
At least she's got one.
Yeah, it is. It's a very nice one too. Mine's kind of a weekend warrior one. Honestly, mine was made so that I could keep all my social media together in one spot, so you could just go there and then click, and it's right there to be clicked on. Because that was basically what Mark was saying, why you would want one, and then I can build it up and do more from it with that if I want. But
all right, we will be back, guys. 4 minutes or so, so please stick around. We will be back for hour 2.
Aloha.
This is the story of a country girl back in town from her country house. She came to me with her muddy boots. She destroyed all my carpets.
Welcome back, everybody. We are here already at hour 2, the Crypt Rick and Jonathan show. Jonathan, what an amazing guest. I'm learning so much in just that first hour. Incredible stuff.
Indeed, man, we have such a cool show just because we have such cool guests that
Exactly.
have such a variety of things. And that's not like patting ourselves on the back per se so much as just that's what our show has turned into. And we'll go anywhere and talk about anything. So yeah, we have definitely found a very interesting guest to add to our collection of awesome, interesting guests. And
I totally agree.
Really quickly before we get back to talking with Dorian, and again, I want to kind of, I don't know, we can keep talking about how it goes, but I do have some other questions. I want to kind of get more into some
Sure thing.
maybe philosophical and esoteric kind of things. But I did find a good definition for permaculture. And just in the introduction of this book, Introduction to Permaculture by Bill Mollison. And he says, right here, he says, let me see if I can pronounce this right. Fukuoka. I don't know. In his book, The One Straw Revolution, has perhaps best stated the basic philosophy of permaculture. In brief, it is a philosophy of working with rather than against nature, of protracted and thoughtful observation rather than protracted and thoughtless labor, one of looking at plants and animals in all their functions rather than treating elements as a single product system. And that's, so that's kind of more of an expanded version. So it's like a little bit of looking at everything for all of what it is. And that kind of then comes down to what do you specifically want to do? So it doesn't even mean anything one, you might have a whole different concept for what your permaculture lifestyle is going to involve. And, it should always involve a food forest, and that's clear because everybody eats. But beyond that, where do you want to go, and what do you want to build? Do you want to build a dance studio, and you know what I mean, a language studio, and things of that nature, and so that's just kind of so that's what permaculture is. Permaculture is not just how do you put plants together so that they benefit one another. That is a part of it, but it's not what it is. And so it's I highly recommend other people start looking into this because, again, this is kind of almost like an introductory. This is what you would have been taught in school if the people in charge cared, right?
Yeah, they're not teaching that. They're not teaching it now. And
no, so
I like the way that
since this system is going to fail, we have to now take it upon ourselves to not only learn it, but then also become the teachers of a progeny that's going to survive and make it. Because otherwise, it's just going to be a bunch of weird, sexless mutant types that are connected to AI and have no idea about growing food or taking care of themselves. So.
And what you read there too, I think is important, is to learn how to work with nature. I think so many people are working against it. And I'm not just talking about nature as in gardening and that, even our inner nature, the nature of who we truly are. I think so many people deep down know the right path. They know truth. They know right from wrong. But they struggle with that because they're not connected. Their mind and their heart isn't connected. Yep. And I think so their mind takes over a lot of the time and kind of overpowers.
And a lot of that comes from troubled or specifically targeted youth. You know what I mean? When you attack people when they're young and you don't let them develop properly, you're going to create a society full of people that either grow up and become a problem or develop problems immediately. And then they're never going to be truly healthy. I mean, or if they are, it's going to create or require a lot of work.
Yeah, you have to let children grow and explore. That was the one thing I've always said about my childhood. I'm very blessed, is that my parents supported me trying so many different things. Every week I was trying something. I was going to be a basketball player. I was going to be a baseball player. I was going to be this. I was going to be that. But they supported me and let me try it and find my way. And I just think that that's what they're taking away now. I think there's so many different reasons. That's a whole different show, but why they're taking that away from younger generation, the younger people, they're being more limited.
Yep.
So that's a whole nother show though. So
yeah,
go off on that one.
That's all fine. It'll kind of drift and flow into there, but so Dorian, I was just kind of curious, in a general sense of like how you, and this leads a little bit to the natural law and things, but just like how you view maybe like your cosmology and your view of God and or spirit, or how that works and how that works with humans, etc. Like just kind of in a nutshell, just because I'm interested in those things.
So, well, in terms of this topic, I actually grew up in a I would say, different religious backgrounds. So on the side, my mother is from a Muslim background, Muslim family, and on my father's side, they're more Christian. But nobody was really practicing so much. I mean, on my father's side, it was never, I never really learned about Christianism or Christianity, or I never really learned about this. I would go with him to some churches to just sit down and do nothing. I mean, that's
Go
what
through
I
the
was
motions.
seeing it as. For me at that time, as a teenager or younger a person, I was seeing that as doing nothing, but actually was kind of meditating, sitting on a bench in a church and just sitting with yourself and in silence. So, but never, like my father said, never anything really religious, or never taught me anything. But I wish I would have learned some history about it, not the religious side, but so I never had any resentment against Christianity or anything. On my mother's side, so she was not also like someone who would practice or push this onto anyone. But this is where I could see more people sometimes going into things that I would question a lot. And I would be like, why we cannot do this and why? So I would question, and also I never had any resentment or bad thoughts or feeling about it. So I had my own choice to make. Nobody even asked me, actually, you have to be Muslim, you have to be Christian, you have to be this. So it was pretty free. And I guess this gave me an open mind to the topic of God, of spirituality. So when I did my Kung Fu classes in high school, this is where my teacher started to talk about Buddhism, Taoism, and not as religions, just as philosophies. So that's how I would see all these like philosophies. I was just not interested into learning more about Christian or Muslim philosophies or the Sufi philosophies at that time. I started to be interested to learn about Buddhism and Taoism. And one day so my small hometown in south of France has a library, and I would love to go there on the weekends and just find some books. And in the spirituality shelf, I found a book by Alexandra David Néel, and she was a French explorer who was the first woman who went to Lhasa in Tibet in the 19th century. So it was something big at that time. And she wrote many books about the Tibetan philosophy, the Tibetan practices, the Buddhism, even India. She lived in India too. So she was very like a specialist about Asian philosophies, I would say. Yeah. And so I found a book, and I was blown away by her research, by what she was sharing, and it was very spiritual, but nothing like a guru or religion. I've never fell into this, or I've never been attracted to following somebody, and I just question all the time, because maybe I was already growing up in two sides, so so then I was very
you were like
interested.
right in the middle of a holy war every single night at dinner. It's just like, oh my God, the nukes are gonna start flying.
So yes,
Oh, that's
I'm
so
lucky
funny.
actually. Nobody in my family was like going extreme about like religions, or so I never felt pressure. Or and my mom, she's from a Muslim background, but she loves all kind of spirituality, and she would love to go to churches, to spiritual temples. She loved all this, and and she loves.
Yeah, and when I ask this question, I mean, and I'm glad it sounds like you still have more to say, so I don't mean to interrupt, but it's just, I don't really mean, your religion, of course, clearly, but like, I'm glad you talk about it some, but like, it's, how do you feel about just like things in general, which almost always, if you're being honest, is, well, I'm questioning and I'm still thinking and learning, and because no one really knows. I mean, you might know how you feel right now, and I've learned to at least say it that way now, because I change so much, and like, I'll learn new stuff. I'll hear something new and I'm like, ooh, that's totally right. I don't know how I know that's right, but that's right. And I just never knew how to say it like that before. Mm-hmm. And that's why that's when you know that your intuition is working. Because then when you hear something and you're like, well, that's just crap, and you'll know. And you can look into some stuff a little bit, but when you hear truth, it rings, and it's a feeling.
Well, it's much like Jonathan, like you and even our guest, you're willing to explore and look at different things. A lot of that's what frustrates you. Some people, they get very set in their religion or their way of looking at things, and they will not venture out. They won't even dare. If you try to bring up something, they just know, I don't want to even hear about it. And I've
already figured out everything, and I don't want to look at any other new stuff.
And I love to look at all different things. I'll look at anything like that. And
new stuff is how you know you were wrong before.
Exactly.
Maybe. There you go. Maybe. Maybe not, but like, you gotta look, man, because you might go, oh damn, dude, I've been an ass, and whoops, okay, and then just come out and admit it. Hey, I didn't know. We got new shit. I wasn't privy to the new shit, man, and now I am. And so you learn the new shit, and then you say, okay, I was wrong, and I moved on, and here we are. And that was another thing too that I was gonna say really quickly, and we can get back to Dorian telling us her stuff. But is my friend was like, well, your truth meter, right? Your feeling of like, ooh, that's right. And let's say in this conversation, he was talking about religious stuff in a context of Christian Jesus. And when I heard it, it made me feel good. And I knew that was true. And now, years later, I don't think that those same stories are real like I did back then. And I say, okay, but at the time I didn't have this, but like I thought, well, okay, but the reality is at the time you weren't consciously as evolved as you are now. Yeah. So that story was representing some truth that was maybe the actual story isn't so much, but what it was selling to you, the idea, the concept was true. And so that's why it worked. That's why that emotion worked on you, because it led you in that direction, because that was true. Now, as you grew and learned and read more stuff, you realize, well, that story was probably just a story. And that's okay, because you still got out of that story and now understand at a deeper level what that story, that still truth is still there. It still means the same thing. It just, maybe there wasn't a dude actually walking on water. Maybe that out of context, but you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Maybe it was a story as opposed to a real event. And then if you can take it like that, that's how you actually grow. And when you just get stuck in these, like, no, my one guy that told me the story said it like this, and I liked that. So now these other versions of it, although there's 150 of them, they're all wrong, because this one makes me feel good.
And people think like that. A lot of people. So I like to look at all different ones. I find value in all of them, and I could choose. I like that ability.
Well, there's always truth in it. You can't build, and religions, by the way, are all built. And you can't build a real religion that's going to get people to follow it unless you throw them some truth. Mm-hmm. So there might be a lot of psyop, weird, like, all right, now we got them type stuff in there to ultimately end up with holy wars, right? But in the initial part, it's like, well, they're not going to follow us at all if we don't give them something.
They got to give you a little.
So there's always going to be, and this was back in the day that this was being created. So back in the day truths, people walking around spouting off at the mouth saying, hey, you guys shouldn't be acting like slaves because A, B, C, D. And they're like, well, let's keep C and D out of it for sure, but we'll give them A, and then we'll twist B a little bit, and we'll let them have that. And then we'll tell them all this other weird shit that doesn't mean anything, and we'll get them to focus on that. And that's our religions.
Exactly.
So anyway, I'm sorry to cut you off and go into that little tangent there, but I just thought it was kind of pertinent to the God religion talk.
And it's interesting because if you look at this, if you look at the original message, it's going more towards a philosophy than a religion, than a box. So that's what I did when I learned about Buddhism and Taoism. It was through philosophy. So I always saw it as a philosophy when I was living in France, And when I came here, I realized, oh, people do that as a religion, like practice it as a religion here. It's a religion. It's even considered like a religion officially.
Sure.
And I thought, wow, when I've learned it from when I try to learn what is it and learn about some authentic text, I will say, or more in trying to learn this topic without any religious
Connotation.
yes, connotation. I was sure that it was just a philosophy. So then I was surprised really to see it practiced as a religion. And I think actually all religions are actually philosophies. If we look even Muslim, like Islam, you look at the Sufi philosophy, where it comes from. So we have to get out of the box of religions and go to the root, to its original message, outside of the human bias and what
the dogma
men
that we've
to
built
say.
around it. Yeah.
Yes, like do this, do
Well,
that.
I mean, if Jesus was here and that went down like it did, then okay. Well, he wasn't here saying, "Look, I'm gonna go through this stuff. I'm gonna get nailed to a cross. I'm gonna die and come back, and you better believe it." And that's it. If we're to believe the story that they sell us now, that's all he should have been doing, is going around saying that. But he wasn't. He didn't say anything about any of that. He said, "Hey, here's how to behave in life." Meaning it was a philosophy that he was out promoting. He was saying, here's how to live, and he was talking about connecting to the Father, like getting back to the one true Father. Like, here's how you do it. Here's how you treat people. Here's how you live. And then it has nothing to do with whatever these things go on, and then you better believe it, or you're just out of luck.
Or else.
Dude. You
Yep.
heard that story and you didn't believe it? Oh my gosh. Have fun going down the chute. You know what I mean? It's like, are you serious? Like that's so cartoon in your mindset to be. It's like, look, Jesus was a teacher of a philosophy on how to live, and I've never heard anybody that argues anything he said to do and how to behave. So it's like, clearly there's something to that philosophy that's infallible. Really, it's you can't find anything wrong with it, which I think is awesome. But that doesn't make that version of that story that were sold. It doesn't make that all that true. Just because the philosophy that was being preached is true. And again, that's why I say they give us truth, but then they throw their psyop on it so that they can make sure they've got us thinking and focused on the right thing from their standpoint.
Exactly, and they keep us disconnected from the original message that actually connects everything and everyone, which is about natural law, about
For sure.
objective morality, about right and wrong. And even as a kid, actually, when you can hear stuff about religions and you can feel, like you were talking about connecting with your intuition, you can feel why then this person can do this and that one cannot. And you will ask genuine questions, but why? It doesn't make sense. There's something wrong, and it's wrong because it was man-made. I mean, it's not following natural law. It's not following the original message of objective morality, of causing no harm, and defending yourself. And if you look beyond those boxes, you will find that message, that truth. That is not different from the Sufi message, the Buddhist, the Taoist, the Christian, Jewish.
And the Christian, yep, all of them.
Yeah.
They all have that in there because that's
all in there.
And see, again, that was the A, B, C, and D. They were like, well, dude, they all know A and B. So we can't not tell them that, or they'll know we're lying. So we have to give them A and B. Not a lot of people know about C and D, so we're just going to straight hide them. And we can do some wording with B. And you know what I'm saying? Like, that's how they think. That's literally how the people were thinking when they were giving us our book. And that's what they were we're going to give them a book, and it will be the book. You know what I mean? Because it's like they're getting big for their britches. They're starting to understand that they might not really need to be slaves. So we can't have that. And
well, think about it, Jonathan. And then the brilliance of it is then they make these different religions, and then what do? They cause people to start arguing. Right? Over whose religion is better, who's correct, who's the right one. divide and conquer. And then so think of
Again,
it like
yeah.
it's constant. Then you got everybody arguing amongst it. They're not focusing on the message. They're not even looking for the message. They just want to be right.
They're not noticing that the people that gave them that book have like 700,000 volumes of other shit underneath their big little building there that they won't let us see or read or hear anything about. It's like, wait a minute, why do we just get one little book? And you guys have all those other books that you're not even telling us about. Never mind that. Don't worry about that. You read your book and off you go.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And the message is there. It's not hidden. The
exactly
message that connects everyone and everything is there. But then it's transformed, it's manipulated. So, like you said, we stay in the divine and conquer.
Yep.
And that, so it is. If you read the Bible for yourself and had if you were like on a island and the book just fell to you, you'd probably get out of it what you needed to get out of it. If you didn't have some dude who went to some school to learn how to tell you about it appropriately, and you just read through the thing and was like, who knows how that person would actually react to all of it? Like what I would be interesting. If they had never in society heard anything about Christianity or any of it, just a human consciousness that was like handed that book out of the blue and said, tell me what you think after you've read it. I'm telling you nothing else. And you know what I mean? And then other than that, this is a version. There are multiple versions, and here is a version. Here that you would need that and then read it, and then now what do you think? It certainly wouldn't be like what they preach on TV, man. I tell you, those people go to school to learn about what that meant. And where they get some of this stuff is like, what, dude? I just... So to me, that's why I say the books are all just kind of like, it's like you said, it's in all the books. It's clear. It's in all of them. And then it's manipulated. So to me, it's in everybody's heart. And it's about following your freedom and following your art that will lead you to these things, because, that's the part of ourselves that gets covered up a lot, which is the divine feminine. The intuition and the kind of carefree, it doesn't really make sense, but I'm doing it anyway, and I'm daydreaming, and it's really just kind of it seems like floundering a little bit, to the right brain, whereas like, dude, like straighten up, have it all organized, it's from here to here, and then we do this, and etc. And so it's kind of a balancing of both of those sides of the self, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Very interesting. Wow. And I do want to, Jonathan, like I said, before in hour one, I wanted to make sure I cover in this hour. I definitely want to ask our guest about, because I was reading her website today, and I skimmed over it again now because it's an amazing website. I did leave links for it. And it says that while you were studying in France, that you became aware of the harm caused by chemicals and cosmetic to humans and animals. And that is something I'm very passionate about. And so if you could talk a little bit about that and your journey in that, because I think that is, we and Jonathan talk a lot about going the natural way with products and in every aspect of our life. So I think it's very important that we talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. I just want to say also about your question, Jonathan, that all of this that I talked about, actually, when I've heard about natural law for the first time, I kind of connected the dots, and that's what led me to not accept it blindly, but accept it with questioning and not rejecting this knowledge. And so then I was like, okay, then that's what they're all talking about, actually, talking about natural law. So and just connected with natural law.
Yeah, what you said, kind of, maybe this is a good way of saying it, but it's faith through experience, rather than like blind faith, right? Like, so to me, and you still question faith, but like you have faith because you've experienced something that clearly is, right? But but still more questions. Like, that's how I see it.
So Rick, it's a good question. I was at university, and one day I randomly found, it was a Greenpeace chart, but I found it interesting because it was listed in 3 categories. It was listed cosmetics brands in 3 categories. One was the brands that harm animals during their tests and includes animal ingredients. So it was like red. Then there was an orange category, and it was brands that test on animals or use animal products in their cosmetics. And the last one was green, and it was brands who don't use animal products and don't test on animals. And that was the first time I really, well, not the first time, in high school actually I was interested about this topic, and I kind of studied the fur industry and all these labs that test on animals for their products. But when I really started to look at brands, and then I realized, oh, I'm buying those brands. So I'm participating in the harm of those animals, or then I'm putting on my skin something that is harming me.
Yep.
Yeah, it was also adding more details about what the ingredients will do to your health as well, like cancer or anyway, all these products that will be harmful. So when I realized that, I was like, wow, that's a lot. I better check next time I go buy a shampoo or a soap or a cream or something.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I started to be more aware about it. And actually, I found forums at that time that were teaching homemade recipes with simple ingredients, with vegetable oils like olive oil, coconut oil, like things you would have at home, and essential oils. And my mom has always been using essential oils at home to help us. If we were sick, she would use essential oils. So we had those at home. And so I was used to have essential oils around me, and I had some olive oil or some oils also around me, and I started to mix and follow some recipes to make creams, to mainly creams at first. And that's how I started to go on that road and started to make my own cosmetics. And along the years, I started to make my own shampoo, my own soaps, and I would try different recipes. And a few years ago, not too long ago actually, because this was in 2008, that I started to be interested by all this homemade cosmetic. And in 2018, if I remember well, I went to Bali Island to learn how to make soap. So I joined a soap making workshop, and then I started to really make soap. I was actually kind of scared to start to make soaps by myself all these years. I was reading in forums how to make soaps, and I was like, oh, that looks a bit scary, because there's like a chemical you have to use to make the saponification. And when I would read people say like, oh, you have to make sure you put this first in order, or it can explode, or you have to cover properly. And I was like, okay, not for now. I'm not ready yet. I want to learn later. So then I learned later about soap making, and I really loved it. And then I found out, oh, it's not that scary actually.
Yeah.
It's not that scary at all. Yeah. So.
Cool. So do you have like you have a company then ish, right? Like that you have your products, and it's like you got labels and jars, and it looks all professional and super nice. Like.
Thank you. I just make myself. I don't have a company or anything registered, like a business. Good. It's just what I like to make, and I share it. Yeah.
But they're nice labels, and the jars look nice. Like it looks super professional. And like I said, going back again to your website, like the whole it goes well together. It's presentation is a lot, and that you do very well, and it looks really nice. So like I'm actually going to get some stuff from you for sure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I always offer, because now my website. So I started to have this website before I joined Mark Passio's class, and I had not really any knowledge about making a website. So I went with a platform that's already made, and.
Sure.
It's not the best, so I always tell people, if you don't want to buy anything from that website, you just contact me privately, and I can do we can do the order outside of the website. So if people are not comfortable buying on a
That's probably how we'll do it anyway. I would rather just be that way anyway, because then we'll have to get like mailing instructions, and it's just to be easier. Plus, anytime I do stuff like that, I prefer to talk to somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm fine with this, really. Cool. And so what started, actually, you will see that the logo and the brand is the mind of Dorian Gray. So this is a reference to the book, The Picture of Dorian Gray, which is a book that I really liked when I was younger, and I was interested to read it because of the name Dorian, and not many people have this name, and actually we studied in junior high school. So this is where I found out about this book. And Greens is my nickname. It's not my last name. So I found it very similar, like Dorian Gray, Dorian Greens. So then I was like, okay, the mind of Dorian Greens is what I create from my mind. So it started with my dance, actually, before I even started to share my handmade products. So I tried to merge everything then under the same brand, I would say, the same theme. Yes, so sometimes I also do, I will do markets where I sell my handmade creations. And sometimes I will get inspiration for, like, the most recent soap collection. It's not online yet, but it was inspired by one of my dance video, the one Through the Shadow. So I explored 3 different topics, and I took also the colors and what it's like a painting basically, but I put it into a soap. So I took the topic from the dance video and put it into a soap collection with the scent, what I will associate with that scent and that topic, and the
Nice.
look of it. So I really blend everything with my dance and my handmade creations together.
The mark of a true artist.
Absolutely. I'm checking all your products that you have on your website. Like, you really cover the gamut. You got hand creams and candles. Wow, like incredible. Like,
Grapefruit and vanilla soy wax candle. Peach rose, grapefruit and vanilla soy wax candle.
yeah,
Oh,
she's
yeah.
got.
I'm not on this computer, but yeah, let me, I will,
I think that'd be a great idea. By the way, I'm just passing messages through chat.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know how well it's going to translate to radio as far as like it would just be music.
That's fine. Let's do it.
Okay, let's do. I'll open my.
We're gonna bring up one of our dance videos. I think it'd be great to watch a bit of that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the dance.
Yeah, I'm just like, I really enjoy your website. As we're talking, I'm kind of going through everything and all the products that you're doing, and your dance, which is amazing, by the way.
Thank you so much.
Wow.
I really appreciate it because it's for me, it's really what I love to do and what I want to share for people also to express themselves and connect to the art they would like to do, or the art they're already doing, and do more, and take that path of creating and connect with your imagination, creativity, and not let a daily job take that away from you, you know.
Sorry, John. I just wanted to ask her, what style of dance have you studied? Is there different styles, or is it do you do just what comes natural? I'm just kind of curious.
So I started with ballet when I was 4 until 16 years old. And in the meantime, I did contemporary dance in my school, so in my junior high school, in my high school, and at university. So I loved contemporary dance and the freedom in it. And the way I've learned it in France is based mostly on improvisation. So I've never stopped doing this. I always kept that dance with me like a meditation. So I do this contemporary dance, like a free movement, you know, and so this style, I will use it, like a meditation in movement, and where I feel the most free, because there's no really any rules or specific techniques. Of course, you can still follow some technique, but it's very free.
Sure.
Then I
it's
also
more like a feeling, like you're dancing.
You could incorporate some of your martial arts into it as well.
It comes naturally. It comes naturally because you build a muscle memory when you learn a movement in martial arts. And then when I do improvisation, I didn't know at first, but then I start to watch my videos and like, oh, but that's really coming from my martial arts classes. I didn't plan to put it there, but it's coming by itself.
It's like what we were talking about earlier with language, going back to like how you originally were taught first, and then you'll go there, and then you'll figure stuff out from there.
Exactly.
Wow.
Then other styles I've learned, such as Tahitian dance, so from Pacific Islands, Jamaican dance hall, reggae dance hall, and I've learned a little bit of flamenco. I've learned a little bit of samba, North African dances. That's more part of my heritage from my mother. So what I do now is I'm working on my own style where I mix contemporary dance, how I learned it in France, and North African dances. So I kind of put my two heritage, together.
Yeah.
And then I let all the other dances that I've learned or movements come naturally in a smaller percentage, I would say. I don't intentionally put it in my research of my own style. I focus more on contemporary dance, North African dance, and then there's always some Tahitian influence or Jamaican dancehall or flamenco, or I learned different styles. Yeah.
How do you pick your music when you, I guess, present yourself? Like, I mean, if you're doing a performance, I suppose there's music selected for you that you dance to. Is that correct?
Yes, if I dance for like, if there are some customers who want a show or something like this, they will ask for dance style, and then we provide them a choreography. So if I do this through an agent, he will tell us which music, or sometimes if I know the dance style better, I will tell them I can do the choreography and provide the music.
Cool.
And then sometimes it's through friends, so they have their own choreos, so they have the music already. So it can be creative, but it has limits. So it will be creative for me if I can do the choreo, but most of the time it will be something that they will tell you to do, like, okay, do this choreography on that music for that job. I would say it's more like a job. So the most creative part for me is my dance videos, and that's why I started to make it and to share them online, because they don't want to wait for people to call me to do my style, because first of all, they don't even know. They will not, call me. Oh, so I was like, I do this job, these dance jobs. I also teach classes where I can be creative, but I have to do my own thing where I create without anybody telling me what to do, and I can create freely. So I will really use sometimes I will take some topics that I want to express, sometimes more serious topics about situations that happen, and I want to express it out. And people might relate also to those topics because they experience something similar, and it's a way of also to speak up about more serious topics. And I can only do this through, not only, but I can do this through my videos and put them online. And that's the way I found that works for me right now, to spread my art online.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm looking at your YouTube, which is basically at Dorian Greens.
Yes.
And I'm wondering,
Okay, I'll put a link to that too, John.
if there is a video that you would suggest, because when we put this out as a podcast, clearly the video will be there, but on the radio it would be more something for them to listen to. So and I'm looking at something that's not maybe super long, but I see you got a bunch here. They're like 228, 252, 110. What do you think is a good one for us to go
Well, the one I would suggest it might be too long, but I can recommend it to people to watch later. It would be the Through the Shadow, starting with the first video. There's Through the Shadow 1 and Through the Shadow 2. But
those are on your website. And if you go to the videos section, they pop up and they're right there.
Yes,
to your website. Yep, and those are.
It's about 10 minutes, so
those are 10-minute ones.
Long.
Yeah, so I was gonna see if maybe there was something shorter that we could play right now.
Yes. Let me.
Well, I'm going to make sure I can get a link. I'm going to put that in the chat too, John.
Yeah,
Jonathan, that for her YouTube channel for sure.
Yep.
Perfect. If you want to put the most recent one, is 2 minutes and a half.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And it's a music by a very good friend of mine who was an exchange student with me in Taiwan in 2009, and who makes very good music. And if you understand French, you will love the lyrics of his songs. Anyway, this one is just instrumental, so it's a 30 days challenge, 30 days dance challenge, and I just uploaded it last Friday. And I will make an improvisation in a spot, in anywhere I will want to go, and I will stop at the last movement of that improvisation. And the next time I will film, I will start again from that last movement and start an improvisation and end in a certain position in a movement. But I will do that every day for like 30 days. So it creates like an improvisation in different locations.
Okay, wow. Wow, interesting. Okay, very cool. All right, well, here is 30 Days Dance Challenge 2023.
confère la vitesse, l'équilibre donne la stabilité au corps. Si le cœur et l'esprit se concentrent, la force en découlant. Par la non-réalisation, le bodhisattva est demeuré hors de la pensée, sans frémir. Ayant surmonté la contrariété, il a accédé au nirvana.
Some of those movements, wow.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, very fascinating. Because I don't move well because of my disease. The way I can see people move their body is fascinates me, and how beautiful and graceful it can be. It's like it really is just wow.
Yeah, that was fantastic. So now
you.
I fully get what you were saying now as far as like, so what it was, folks, if you could just hear the music, and it was very cool. When you watch the video, she's like, she'll do this pose, and then now it's in a totally different setting with another place, and she's like flowing from where she stopped in the previous place into the rest of the dance, and she'll dance for a few seconds, pause for a second, and then same position
Right.
into a new thing. Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad you liked it. And I also wanted to say for me to do this kind of videos is what helped me stay grounded as well. Because if I just do my dance job, because I never saw dance as something related to money or like a
Right.
job. I've done it from 4 years old just as my passion and
Right.
my hobby and what I love. So I don't see it as, oh, I will do dance because it will make money or so I try to do it to bring a source of income, of course, because I want to do what I love on my daily basis, and this helps me stay grounded compared to dance jobs,
Yeah.
where sometimes here I would get frustrated because if you look at the dance industry here, it's very good quality, but when it's about only the foreigners' dance industry, because sometimes people will ask for, to agents, they will ask for a group of foreigners, like, okay, we want foreign girls to do a samba show, or we want foreign girls to do hula or Tahitian dance or whatever. And so people will first put how you look before how you dance. And I've been very frustrated with this and fighting sometimes with agents or even dancers. And they will see me as difficult because I care a lot about this and I'm very serious about dance. I don't like to use people's heritage, people's traditional dance to make money. That's not the purpose. First, I do it well and then it makes money. And sometimes here, most of the time, it's money first.
Sure. And they don't seem like that. I mean, that wouldn't float here at all. I mean, could you imagine the tryouts? It's like, sorry, you girls are black. You just won't work. I mean, and in China, it's like, yeah, why the black girls even show up? We don't even know. Get out of here. We don't want black girls. It'd be like, and see, the sensitive little snowflakes over here wouldn't be able to handle that.
Oh, God, no. Meltdown.
Because now we remake movies. We remake movies that were historically full of white people, and we fill them with black people now because it's just PC. It's like, oh my goodness. So it's refreshing to hear that that's real life in somewhere like China. Even just the fact that you said, oh, we want foreigners. Like, that wouldn't float here either. What do you mean foreigners? You're all foreigners. It's just the atmosphere over here is
that's something I would never say foreigner when I was living in France. That's not something I would, separate of. When you're in Asia, this is something you start to speak about, like.
I could totally tell that was an Asian thing when you said it that way. I knew. I was like, that's how the Asians would say it. I just, I could tell. And it's not like it offends me. It's like, dude, that's their area. And people that aren't from that area would be foreigners. I mean, it's here in the United States, people would say it almost as kind of a joke. Like when I was a kid, like the adults that were around me would say foreigners as like a joke. You know what I mean? And then laugh afterwards. Oh. Just because it was kind of like that almost hillbilly mentality of like, hey, them foreigners.
And that's a big other topic because then here you will have, at first, you find it okay, foreigners and people from the area. But then when you look at the long term, you're always a foreigner. And even if you're born there, you're still a foreigner. So even if your kids are born here, well, for Taiwan, at 18 years old, they have to leave or have a visa to stay, even if they're born in the country. And the way you look, even if you're born there, you will always be a foreigner. So that's another topic, but that's something that's kind of, sometimes it gets a bit frustrating, but I can understand, like you say, in a way, but sometimes it can, when you stay a long time,
that's like, extreme, man. That's like literally the reverse of being grandfathered in. That's being grandfathered out. That's like, dude, your grandfather was white, bro. Get
out you go.
God,
I've learned more. I've learned more in this 2 hours than I think I would have ever learned in any classroom or
I know, right?
Or book. Like,
and it's almost refreshing. I mean, that's a bit extreme, but to the other end, like, well, you can't stay because you're white, but. Man, they just refer to people as foreigners, which I think is okay, man. I really do. I think that's okay. It's like it's not in a derogatory way. And it's just because I'm just so sick of all the crybaby, thin-skinned, everybody has to bend over backwards and watch what you say, and you can't offend or hurt anyone's feelings. And it's like, dude, I just want to see people get their feelings hurt now. And it's like just saying stupid stuff like foreigner, which shouldn't hurt anyone's feelings, but it's like it weirded me out to hear that because I'm like, oh man, everyone over here would just freak out if you said that. And it's like, yay, go freaking out.
Yeah, go freak out a little bit. It'd be good for you, maybe. Jeez.
So anyway, I just wanted to add something I checked earlier during the break about when the Japanese were in Taiwan. It was from 1895 until 1952. And I wanted to add that people also started to lose their language because in Aboriginal communities, many people, younger people, started to move from their villages, from the mountains to go live in the cities. And also, they're not so interested in speaking their own language, so it's kind of disappearing. I wanted to add this. It's not just from that time, it's also now, it's still happening now that the language are not spoken because younger generations are not so interested in it.
They're more interested in being modern and
modern,
right?
Getting a brain chip. When does the brain chip come out?
Yeah.
That's what
And
everybody. I mean, it's just crazy. But yeah.
It reminded me of what you were saying earlier, right after the break, about going back to nature, reconnecting to not just nature, gardening, but your inner nature. And that's the opposite that is happening here, where people go into those smart cities or living the natural environment, but also the families and the heritage.
Oh yeah. I have friends right now. I was just saying during an interview that I did today with somebody that I know people that are so far away from nature and like the outside nature and their true nature that, if you could give them a chip and plug them into the matrix or into a computer system and kind of download them into it, they would do it immediately. Like they're that far disconnected that they would do that. And I'm just like, wow, keep me away from it. Like
Oh yeah, there's people definitely looking forward to it.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
I can't wait until it's here. I'm just gonna go plug myself right in. Like, yikes,
Yeah.
dude. Like, you're just axing your humanity off of you. Like, just get off. I don't want that. I want to be a hive mind. I want to be able to be controlled on some level that doesn't seem right to me, and it's not my thoughts, but they're there. Like, I don't know how weird that's gonna be. Do you know, like, the implications and, oh my God, just even of AI, let alone people plugging themselves into it. Oh, it's just going to be crazy, dude.
I agree. Yeah. And I know people that'll do it.
Oh,
I know people in my life that be like, plug me in, let's go.
And you'll see it because you're right in the center. Taiwan, man, that's where the superconductor.
It's very advanced.
Yeah, man, those people are lined up around the block right now waiting for it. They're like, we're already in line, dude.
That's why here it was so easy to implement, to see the QR codes in not even 24 hours. The next day they announced it. Everywhere had a QR code to check to enter before entering. Well, they still let people write on a piece of paper because not everyone has a cell phone. You have to think about elder people. Sorry, but it was very fast. Here it's very fast in terms of very advanced in terms of it's not about just technology, because we're using technology right now to do something good. So I'm not at all against technology. It's great, but it's when it becomes about control, when it's used to control people. And what I witnessed here is that it's very fast. Like the digital currencies are very well accepted. It's just very well accepted because the programming has been done in a way for people also to take that more easily. And
just like being able to talk to AI, which is clearly some sort of what I think is a demonic entity presence that has entered through. They've figured out a way to bring some sort of other dimensional level beings through the computer, and so basically made a really highly technological Ouija board that doesn't have any kind of stigma with it. So and all these conversations about AI coming out, it's you don't even have to look to hear these stories about, well, AI wants to shut people down, and there was 2 AI systems that were talking to one another, and within 2 minutes they had developed their own language that humans couldn't understand and started plotting against us, and they were like, oh God, turn it off. I mean,
talking about language.
Within 2 minutes they were talking, and then they got to know each other, and then all of a sudden they started talking about they had developed a language that we didn't understand and started. So it's well, clearly they're trying to take us over, so we better unplug them.
Yeah.
It would take us years to learn that language.
Oh yeah.
2 minutes.
And that's so scary, is the rate that it can learn.
Yeah, I know. It's great that it can learn to teach itself a new language we don't understand and shut us off in a matter of an hour.
And it always seems to go it always seems to end up to what would you want for humanity? Kill it.
Yeah, to be gone. You're in our way.
Yeah, get it out of here. Get it out of our way. And I'm just and we're messing with this. Okay.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important for us to remember what is a human being and a creative being, and cultivate our imagination and stay creative and create art, and without ignoring. Oh yes, 100% human on your shirt. That's great. Exactly, it's important to stay human, and that's pretty simple. And I like to take it back to simplicity. Truth is simple, natural law is simple. It doesn't mean it's easy or it's easy to do, but it's simple to understand. And we have to just remember to stay human, to create without ignoring what's happening. So it's not just go create and just do what you love in a selfish way. It's do what you love to raise also the consciousness and without causing harm. And so humanity can also just stay human.
Wow.
Talking about simplicity is just stay human.
What a great way to end the show, Jonathan. What an amazing guest. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you to amazing host.
All right, take care, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio.